Every evening your yard changes. Not loudly, not all at once, but quietly enough that most people miss it. The feeder slows down, the fence line goes still. The robin that was pulling at the grass is gone. The sparrows that were jumping from branch to branch disappear into the edges. And the cardinal you saw just a few minutes ago seems to vanish into thin air. If you look outside after dark, it can feel like the birds have left your yard completely. But they have not left. They have only moved into the part of the yard you almost never see. The hidden part, the part inside the hedge, inside the evergreen, inside the old hole in the tree, under the porch beam, along the quiet fence corner where the wind is weaker. After dark, your yard does not become empty. It becomes secret. Some birds are tucked so deep inside shrubs that you could walk past them and never know. Some are pressed into spaces barely larger than their bodies. Some are saving every bit of warmth they can. And some are resting lightly enough to react to one small sound in the dark. A branch snapping, leaves moving, a cat crossing the fence, an owl calling from somewhere you cannot see. For a backyard bird, night is not just sleep. It is a test of warmth, a test of cover, a test of listening, a test of making it to morning. And stay with me until the most important part near the end, because that is where this becomes more than just a bird mystery. That is where you will see how ordinary things around human homes, porch lights, outdoor cats, trimmed shrubs, clean yards, old nest boxes, can quietly change what happens to birds after dark. Sometimes in ways that help them, and sometimes in ways we never meant to. If you love discovering the small hidden things happening right outside your window, subscribe before you leave, and comment 2 words. Still here if you have ever looked into a dark yard and wondered where the birds went. Share this with someone who has a feeder, a garden, or a favorite morning bird, because after this, they may never look at a quiet yard the same way again. Tonight, we are going into the hidden night shift of backyard birds. Birds do not simply disappear when the sun goes down. Long before the yard is fully dark, many of them have already made one of the most important decisions of the night. Where can I hide? Where is the wind weaker? Where can I hear danger before it reaches me? Where can I escape if something moves in the dark? To us, the last hour of daylight may look peaceful. A little movement at the feeder, a robin crossing the grass one more time, a few sparrows slipping through the fence line, a cardinal flashing red near the edge of the yard. But to the birds, that hour is not just the end of the day. It is preparation. One bird may move toward the thickest hedge. Another may disappear into an evergreen where the branches are dense enough to hide its shape. A wren may slip toward a porch corner, a vine tangle, or a small gap near the roofline. A chickadee may search the bark of an old tree, looking for a cavity, a crack, or an abandoned hole just large enough to hold its body through the night. A nest box that looked empty all afternoon may suddenly become important after sunset. A fence corner you barely notice may become a place where the wind breaks. A messy patch of shrubs near the back of the yard may become the safest room available. That is the part most people miss. Birds are not choosing places at random. They are reading the yard, not the way we read it. We may see a clean lawn, a trimmed hedge, an old tree, a porch beam, a pile of branches, or a dark corner near the fence. But a bird sees cover, shelter, escape routes, shadows. Places where a predator may have trouble reaching. Places where the body can stay a little warmer. Places where stillness becomes protection. And this is where the first twist of the night appears. The yard that looks most beautiful to us is not always the yard that feels safest to them. A wide open lawn may look clean, but it gives a small bird almost nowhere to hide. A perfectly trimmed shrub may look neat, but it may not hold enough cover for a bird trying to disappear into the dark. And a messy hedge may look ordinary to you, but to a bird, it can be the safest room in the neighborhood. What looks cluttered to us may look like safety to them. What looks empty to us may already be occupied, and what looks like the end of the day may actually be the beginning of the most careful part of their lives. So when your yard goes quiet at dusk, do not imagine the birds simply flying away without a plan. Many of them have already chosen. The hedge, the evergreen, the old tree, the nest box, the porch corner, the place where the wind is softer and the shadows are deeper. But finding cover is only the first part of the night, because once the temperature begins to fall, a bird has to survive something even harder than darkness. But finding cover is only the first part of the night, because once the temperature begins to fall, a bird has to survive something even harder than darkness. The long hours without food. During the day, a small bird is almost always working, searching, pecking, flying, listening, moving from branch to branch, feeder to feeder, patch of grass to patch of grass. It is constantly taking in energy because its tiny body burns energy quickly. But after sunset, that changes. The food is gone. The light is gone. The warmth of the day begins to leave the ground, the branches, the fence rails, the roof lines, and the open air. And the bird has to live through the night using only what it carried into the dark. That is why the place it chose before sunset matters so much. A thick shrub is not just a hiding place. It can be a small pocket of protection. A tree cavity is not just a hole. It can hold a little warmth around a tiny body. A nest box is not just something for spring. On a cold night, it may become a room where the wind cannot reach as easily. And for a bird that weighs almost nothing in your hand, a little less wind can matter. A little more cover can matter. A little less exposed branch can matter. Because the hardest part of the night is often not the moment when the sun disappears. It is later. Much later, when the neighborhood is quiet, when the porch lights are off, when the air has cooled for hours, when the ground is cold, when the bird has not eaten since evening, and when morning is still not here. Those hours before dawn can be the true test. The bird must stay warm enough, still enough, hidden enough, alert enough, and it must do all of that while spending as little energy as possible. For a tiny bird, the night is not empty time. It is a slow balancing act. Rest, but not too deeply. Save warmth, but be ready to move. Stay hidden, but be able to escape. Wait for morning, but survive long enough to reach it. And that changes the way you hear the first bird of the day. Because the first song of the morning is not just music. It is proof of survival. It is the sound of a small body that made it through the coldest hours. It is the sound of one more night being crossed. For a tiny bird, morning is not guaranteed. It is earned through the night. And that is why the smallest places in your yard can become the most important places after dark. A crack in old bark, a quiet nest box, a dense evergreen, a low corner where the wind is softer. Places you may barely notice during the day can become the difference between a bird losing too much warmth and a bird living to greet the morning. And that is why the smallest places in your yard can become the most important places after dark. A crack in old bark, a quiet nest box, a dense evergreen, a low corner where the wind is softer. Places you may barely notice during the day can become the difference between a bird losing too much warmth and a bird living to greet the morning. So look at your yard for a moment the way a bird might see it. Start with the evergreen. By daylight, it may look like just another shrub near the house or a dark green shape along the fence. But at night, those thick branches can do more than decorate the yard. They can break the wind. They can hide the outline of a small body. They can make it harder for a predator to see movement inside. A cardinal, a sparrow, or a finch may slip into that cover before dark and become almost impossible to notice from the outside. To you, it is a shrub. To the bird, it may be a hidden room. Then look at the old tree. Not the perfect part of it, the rough part, the cracked bark, the small holes, the places where a branch broke years ago, the abandoned spaces a woodpecker may have opened and left behind. Those places may look like damage to us. But to a chickadee, a titmouse, a nuthatch, or a small wren, they can become shelter. A cavity does not have to be beautiful. It only has to be deep enough, dry enough, and safe enough to hold a tiny body through the dark. Now look at the nest box. During spring, we think of it as a place for eggs, chicks, and busy parents flying back and forth with food. But after the breeding season, a nest box does not always lose its purpose. On a cold night, an empty box can become a protected room. A place where the wind is weaker, a place where a small bird can tuck in and spend fewer precious calories staying warm. So a nest box that looks unused during the day may not be useless at night. It may simply be serving a quieter purpose. Then look at the brush pile, the fallen branches, the dry leaves, the low tangle near the back corner. To human eyes, that may look like something that needs to be cleaned up. But to a junco, a wren, or a sparrow, it can look like cover, a place with layers, a place with shadows. A place where a small bird can disappear quickly if something moves nearby. What looks messy to us may look like safety to them. And finally, look close to the house, the porch beam, the roof edge, the fence corner, the narrow space where two walls meet and the wind does not hit as hard. Some birds may choose places surprisingly close to us, not because they understand our homes the way we do, but because those structures create shelter. A roof can block rain. A corner can soften wind. A fence line can create shadow. A porch can become a quiet ledge in the dark. This is the secret map of your yard, not the map you see when you mow the lawn, trim the hedge, or refill the feeder. The map birds read after the light begins to fade. During the day, you see your yard as decoration. At night, birds see it as shelter, cover, warning system, and escape route. That is the twist. You do not just have a yard. After dark, you have a collection of hiding places, windbreaks, lookout points, shadows, and possible shelters. Some useful, some exposed, some safe, some dangerous. And the birds know that map far better than we do. They know the thick hedge, the old tree, the quiet box, the hidden corner, the place where they can vanish before the night fully arrives. But even the best hiding place does not make a bird completely safe. Because once it settles in, it still has to listen. But even the best hiding place does not make a bird completely safe. Because once it settles in, it still has to listen. A sleeping bird is vulnerable. Its eyes are not searching the yard the way they do in daylight. Its body is still. Its wings are folded. Its feet are locked around a branch, pressed into a cavity, or tucked inside the shelter it chose before dark. But it cannot afford to disappear completely into sleep. Not the way we do. Some birds can rest in ways that keep part of their awareness open to the world around them. Enough to recover, enough to save energy, but also enough to notice when the night changes. A twig breaks, a leaf shifts, something moves along the fence. To us, it may be background noise. To a bird, it may be information. A cat crossing under the hedge. An owl calling from a tree you cannot see. A raccoon moving near the trunk, claws touching bark. A branch dipping under weight. The soft scrape of something climbing. In the dark, small sounds become large. The yard that seems silent from your window may be full of signals, warnings, movements, distances, directions. A bird hidden inside an evergreen may not see the whole yard, but it can hear the leaves around it. It can feel movement through the branches. It can sense when the quiet has changed. A wren tucked near a porch beam may be resting, but a sudden scrape above it can mean danger. A chickadee inside an old tree cavity may be still, but the sound of claws on bark can turn stillness into escape in a heartbeat. A sparrow deep in a brush pile may stay hidden for hours. Then one wrong sound can send wings bursting from the shadows. That is the strange thing about the nighttime yard. It looks asleep, but it is not silent. It looks empty, but it is being watched, heard, and measured by small lives hidden inside it. What we call background noise may be a warning system. What we call stillness may be a field of signals. What we do not notice may be the difference between staying hidden and flying into the dark. A bird may be resting, but the night is still being read. And then, before most people are awake, the dark begins to change. The first bird sings, and that song means more than most of us realize. And then, before most people are awake, the dark begins to change. The first bird sings, and that song means more than most of us realize. We often hear the first bird of the morning and think the day has begun. But for that bird, something else has just ended. The cold, the dark, the long hours of listening, the risk of being found, the slow wait inside a hedge, a tree cavity, a nest box, or a quiet corner near the fence. Before the sun reaches your windows, some birds are already awake. A robin may begin before the sky looks bright to you. A cardinal may call from a hidden branch. A wren may stir near a porch or brush pile. A sparrow may move from cover into the first thin light. To us, it sounds like morning. To them, it may be the first safe moment after a long night. Bird song is beautiful, but it is not only beautiful, it is also a signal. A bird sings to claim a place, to call, to announce itself, to begin again, and in a quiet way, it also says something very simple. I am still here. The bird that sings first may have spent the night pressed into cover, saving warmth, listening for danger, waiting for the coldest hours to pass. It may have heard the owl. It may have gone still when something moved below the branch. It may have stayed hidden while the yard looked empty from your window. And then morning came, not all at once, just a little light, a little warmth, a little safety returning to the edges of the yard, and the birds sang. That is the part we often miss. The first bird you hear in the morning may be singing because it survived the night. The first song of the morning is not just music. It is proof that the bird made it through the night. Once you know that, the dawn chorus feels different. It is not just sound filling the air. It is life returning from the hidden places, from the hedge, from the evergreen, from the old tree, From the nest box you thought was empty, from the corners of the yard where the dark held small lives until morning. But here's the part most people miss. The birds are not facing the night in some untouched wilderness. They are facing it in our yards, under our lights, beside our pets, inside the spaces we choose to leave or remove. And those ordinary choices can make the night easier, or much more dangerous. And this may be the most important part of the whole night. Because birds are not only choosing between shrubs, branches, nest boxes, and old trees, they are also living with the choices we make around them, the porch light we leave on, the cat we let wander outside, the hedge we trim down to almost nothing, the brush pile we clear away because it looks messy, the nest box we forget about after spring. To us, these may feel like small things, normal things, ordinary parts of keeping a home and yard. But after dark, small choices can quietly change the world a bird has to survive in. Start with light. A porch light may seem harmless to us. A bright yard may even feel safer, cleaner, easier to see. But to some birds, too much light can blur the line between night and morning. It can make the dark less dark. It can make the quiet hours feel less natural. It can cause some birds to stir earlier, sing earlier, or respond to the night in ways they might not have without that light. Darkness is not just the absence of something. For birds, darkness can be part of the habitat, a place to hide, a signal to rest, a cover that helps the yard become safer for small lives. Then there are cats, and this is not about blaming anyone who loves cats. Many people do. But a sleeping bird is at its weakest. It is still. It is tucked into cover. It may be saving energy. It may not see danger until danger is already close. And an outdoor cat moving through shrubs, fence lines, brush piles, or porch corners can turn a hiding place into a dangerous place. The same hedge that protected a bird from wind can become risky if something begins hunting through it. The same fence corner that felt safe can become a trap if there is no quick escape. At night, birds do not need many extra dangers. The night is already difficult enough. And then there is the yard itself. A clean yard may look beautiful to us. A wide lawn, a trimmed hedge, no fallen branches, no leaves gathered under shrubs, no low tangles near the fence. Everything open, everything neat. But if every leaf, low branch, vine, and brush pile is removed, birds may have fewer places to hide when the night gets cold. A yard can be too exposed without looking dangerous to us. That is the strange part. What feels open and clean to a human may feel empty and risky to a bird. This does not mean you have to let your whole yard become wild. It does not mean every corner has to be overgrown. Sometimes, one dense shrub can matter. One quiet brush pile near the back fence. One evergreen that keeps its cover through winter. One protected corner where the wind is softer. One old tree left standing safely. One nest box kept clean, secure, and placed where birds can actually use it. A nest box is not only a spring story. It is not only about eggs and chicks. On some nights it can become shelter. A place where the wind does not reach as easily. A place where a small bird can tuck itself away from the open dark. So if you have a nest box that looks empty during the day, do not assume it has no purpose. It may be serving a quieter role after sunset. And shrubs matter too, especially dense shrubs. Evergreens, native plants, hedges with real cover, vines and layered growth that give birds places to move, hide, and escape. A yard with only open grass gives birds very few options, but a yard with layers becomes different. Grass, low cover, shrubs, small trees, tall trees, fence lines, corners, shadows. To us, that may simply look like a more natural yard. To birds, it may look like a set of choices. And this is the twist most people never think about. You do not have to see birds at night to be affecting them. You may never know which bird used your hedge. You may never see the wren tucked near the porch. You may never notice the sparrow inside the brush pile. You may never know whether a chickadee used that old cavity or nest box when the wind got cold. But your yard may still be part of the story. The light you reduce. The cat you keep indoors. The shrub you leave a little thicker. The brush pile you keep in one quiet corner. The nest box you maintain, the native cover you plant. These are not dramatic things. They are small things. But small things matter when the life depending on them is small too. You do not need to turn your yard into a forest. But a little cover, a little darkness, and a little shelter can matter more than most people realize. And once you understand that, the next morning does not look quite the same. Because when the night passes and the birds return to the feeder, the fence, and the grass, everything may seem ordinary again. But now, if you look closely, the morning is carrying a story you could not see before. Because when the night passes and the birds return to the feeder, the fence and the grass, everything may seem ordinary again. The feeder fills with movement. The robin returns to the lawn. The sparrow hops along the fence line. The wren slips through the low branches. The cardinal flashes red through the morning light. And if you were watching from the window, you might think it is just another day beginning. The same yard, the same trees, the same feeder, the same birds returning to familiar places. But now you know it is not just a normal morning. Somewhere in that yard, a bird may have spent the night hidden deep inside a hedge. Another may have pressed its body into a small cavity in an old tree. Another may have tucked into a nest box you thought was empty. Another may have waited inside an evergreen while the coldest hours passed before dawn. Another may have listened through the dark, alert to every movement along the fence, every scrape on bark, every sound that did not belong. And the first bird that sang may not have been simply welcoming the morning. It may have been announcing that it survived the night, that it made it through the cold, through the stillness, through the danger, through the long hours when the yard looked empty to you. This is the part that changes everything. The nighttime yard is not just a pause between yesterday and tomorrow. It is not just the empty space between two mornings. It is a hidden chapter, a quiet test, a place where small lives tuck themselves into the edges and trust the dark to hold them. By day, birds can seem like visitors. They arrive at the feeder, they cross the lawn, they perch on the fence, they flash through the branches and leave before we fully notice them. But at night, your yard may become something much more important. Not just a place they visit, a place they depend on, a place where shelter matters, where cover matters, where darkness matters, where one thick shrub, one old tree, one quiet nest box, or one protected corner can become part of a bird's chance to see another morning. That is why the quiet yard after sunset should not feel empty anymore. It may be holding more life than you can see. It may be full of small bodies hidden in the places you once overlooked. It may be listening, waiting, sheltering, holding. The birds did not vanish. They trusted the hidden parts of your yard to hold them until morning. So the next time your yard goes quiet, do not look at it as empty. Look again, at the hedge, at the evergreen, at the old tree, at the nest box, at the corner where the wind is softer. Because somewhere in the dark, a small life may be waiting for morning. So the next time your yard goes quiet, do not assume it has gone empty. Look at the hedge, the evergreen, the old tree, the nest box, the dark corner near the fence, the place under the porch roof, the little patch of cover you may have walked past all day without noticing. There may be a small life hidden there, silent enough for you to miss, still enough to stay safe, alert enough to survive. The feeder may be empty. The fence line may be quiet. The branches may look still. But the yard is not empty. It is holding small lives in the dark. A shrub is not just a shrub. A nest box is not just a decoration. A fence corner is not just a fence corner. And the first song in the morning is not just a pretty sound. It may be proof that something small made it through the night. The birds did not disappear. They moved into the hidden version of your yard. And once you know that, the quiet after sunset feels different. The darkness feels different. The morning feels different. If this changed the way you see your yard, comment 2 words, not empty. Subscribe for more hidden backyard stories like this, and share this with someone who has a feeder, a garden, or loves hearing birds in the morning. Because your yard does not go silent because life has left. It goes silent because life has learned how to hide.